Hi everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of the projects from our majestic jewellery collection, the beaded Union Jack Kite Brooch. In terms of materials, you're going to need seed beads or delicas in any size of red, white and blue. I'm using Preciosa size 10s. You're also going to need a 2-hole brooch back, some thread and a beading needle. I've created this little pattern just here, so if you'd like to get a copy, just click the link in the description where you can go and download our free worksheet, or grab our kit that also includes 3 other fun Union Jack themed jewellery designs. To begin, cut a length of thread about 2 meters or 2 yards in length and put a beading needle on one end. Pick up 4 of your red seed beads and slide them down to the end of your thread, leaving a tail of about 30 centimeters or 12 inches. Pass through all 4 beads again, and then tie both threads to each other with an overhand knot to get it extra secure. If you want to, you can even tie a second knot just to make sure it's extra secure. Once we've done that, it creates this little cross of 4 beads. Pass through the next bead around the cross and pull it tight so that you've got your working thread exiting from the top and your tail thread exiting from the bottom. Next, pick up 2 red seed beads and pass into that next little bead around the cross. Pull tight. Pick up 2 more and pass into the next bead. Turn the corner so it's a little bit easier to work with and get everything sitting neatly before picking up 2 more red seed beads and passing into the next bead around the cross. Finally, we're going to pick up 2 more little red seed beads, pass into the final bead of our cross, and continue through the first bead of the original pair that we added at the beginning of this row. We're going to start our 3rd row now, so pick up 2 more red seed beads and pass into the seed bead directly beside. Pull all the way through so that the 2 new beads sit neatly on top of the 2 from the row below. Next, we're going to pick up 1 white seed bead and pass into the first bead of the next pair from the row below. Pull all the way through so that it pops neatly into that little gap there. Next, we're going to pick up just 1 red seed bead and pass into the bead beside and pull all the way through. Next, pick up 1 white seed bead and pass into the bead beside. Again, pull all the way through so that it pops into that gap. Next, pick up 2 more red seed beads, pass down the bead beside, pull all the way through so that these 2 beads sit neatly on top of the 2 beads from the row below. Pick up 1 white seed bead, pass into the bead beside so that it fills in the gap. Then another red seed bead into the bead beside, all the way through. Now another white bead, and this time we're going to do what's called a step up, where we pass through the bead below and the bead above it, which is the first one that we added in this row. Pull all the way tight, and that completes our 3rd row. To start row 4, we're going to pick up 2 more red beads, pass into the bead beside, and now we're going to start filling the gaps until we get to the next corner. So pick up 1 white seed bead, pass into the white bead from the row below, pick up another white seed bead into the red bead right on the corner that we made in the previous row. Now another white bead into the white one from the row below, pull tight, another white one, and into that end red bead. Now, because our little Union Jack is going to be symmetrical on the top and on the bottom, we're going to do the exact same process on the second side. So first, 2 red beads, then 1 white bead into there. Now another white bead into that corner red, pull tight, then 1 more white bead into the next gap. And finally, 1 last white bead before we do that same step up process again, where we go into the bead beside and up into the first bead from the row that we've just done. And there we go. There's row 4. Now you've probably started to notice, but to start row 5, we're going to use 2 red beads again. So pass down into that little bead beside. Get it positioned neatly. Now we'll do a white one and pass into that next little white bead. Grab another white bead and go into the next gap. Now we're going to do something a little different. We're going to pick up 2 red beads for this corner to give us that nice corner shape happening again. Jump across into the next white one and pull tight so it sort of bridges that gap between the 2 beads. Now pick up 1 white bead and we're going to head back towards the bottom corner now. So through that next white bead, pick up 1 more white one and through that little red bead at the end. So we're just going to do the second side the same as we did the first, adding beads into each of the gaps and then finally stepping up through the end of our row. Here we are, last bead, into the bead beside and step up into the one above. So there we are, that's the end of row 5. Just continue adding rows according to our pattern until you've finished the 11th row. Here we are, so we're going to do our 12th row now. It's a little different in that we only use 1 seed bead for our top corner. So just pass down the bead beside just there, and you'll see now it just finishes that little edge off and gives it a nice corner. Now that you've done that, you can just continue this row the same as all the others. We're almost finished now. Add the last bead, and don't forget to step up into that little corner bead right there at the tip. There we are, that's all finished now. If you want to leave it like this or turn it into an earring, you can do, but I'm going to attach a little brooch to the center, but first I'm going to turn mine into a kite by doing a little triangle here at the bottom in brick stitch. To get started, we're going to pick up 1 blue bead and 1 white bead. We're going to loop around this end bead and pass through the other side of it to create a little group of 3 beads here. Get them sitting neatly, and then we're going to pass up this little white bead into position to start working in brick stitch. Pick up 1 white and 1 red bead, and we're going to pass underneath this little bridge of thread that's joining the 2 beads to each other. So take your needle underneath and pull tight so that the 2 beads are sitting nicely on top of the row below. Now we're going to go back up this little red bead. Make sure you don't go under the thread bridge when you do that. And as we pull that tight, it will lock those 2 beads on top of the previous row. Now we're going to pick up 1 blue bead, and we're going to go under the same bridge of thread just there. So if you look closely, you can see there it is. There's that little bridge of thread. Pull through and get it sitting nicely into position. You might have to maneuver it a little. And then take your needle, back up that little blue bead, pull tight to lock it into place. Nice. And we'll do one last row of brick stitch. So I find it easier to turn your work over. We're going to pick up 1 blue and 1 red, go underneath the first thread bridge, see it just there? And then we're going to pull all the way through there and now back up that red bead to lock it into place. Next, we'll pick up another, just 1 red bead, and we're going to go under the next thread bridge there, just between the red and white beads. So pull all the way through, back up the red bead to lock it in place. And now we're going to pick up 1 more white bead, go under that same last thread bridge. See it just there? Pull through, position it if you need to, and then go back up that little white bead once more to get it nice and firm. There we go. So now we've got that nice little triangle at the bottom. We can add our fringes to get our kite looking fantastic. So with our thread exiting in position here, we can start adding our fringes based on the color that they're coming out of. So if you have a look just here at the very, very end, this one's going to be white, then we have a red one in the middle, and then we'll finish off with blue on the very end. So for my design, I've used 33 white beads. You can change this to be whatever you want, whatever you think looks good. But to really finish each of the tassels off, I'm going to separate 3 beads away from the others. That's going to almost form like a little mini bow at the bottom. So just pinch them separate, and then we're going to weave back up all the other beads, so the other 30 beads, just leaving those 3 at the very end. Just take your time with it and just go back through each one and make sure you don't accidentally miss any. Finish by coming out of that little white bead in your brick stitch triangle there. Pull it till you've got a nice tension where it's not too firm, not too loose. Just hold the end beads and pull against it, and that will help you to get rid of any spaces of thread between each of the beads. Now, if you remember how we left 3 beads there at the bottom, if you take a little look, you can see they've got that nice little shape there to them, giving it almost like a bow effect. And now, if we're happy with the tension, we can move on and start doing our next one. So pick up your needle and go across and into that next little red bead just there. Pull all the way through, and now this time, to create like a graduated effect, I'm going to do 38 red seed beads. So 5 more than I did before. Again, we'll separate those 3 from the end and weave back up all of the other ones, being extra careful that we don't accidentally miss any of them out. Just keep going there until you get to the very end, and it's a little different because this time we're actually going to go through the second red seed bead so that it sits in the center of our little triangle here. Once you're happy with the tension, weave into that end blue seed bead and create another tassel. I used 43 beads, leaving 3 at the end to make that nice bow shape. There we go. So now we're going to just weave this back up into our work now, up through the blue beads here on the edge, and then we're going to go across through that little red bead, see it there at the top, and back into our Union Jack. So just weave along into your work until you reach probably one of the white seed beads. Because I've used a white thread, the technique I'm going to use to finish off my thread is best when you're next to a bead that's the same color as your thread, just because it'll kind of hide it. So somewhere around about here I think we'll do, and what we're going to do is pass back and forth to the bead beside, then back where we started, back into the bead beside again, back to where we started, and just keep doing that same process until it's quite locked in. Then maybe move to the bead above and do the same process another time. So into the bead beside, back to the one where you started, into the one beside, and so forth until you feel it's nice and secure. Finally, weave a couple of beads away so that you're not close to where you were. Bring in your scissors and cut off the excess. So we're going to be working with the tail thread now. So pop your needle on there and we can pop our brooch right here in the center. Once we've got our needle attached, we're going to thread up through the red beads in the center of our kite to get ourselves into position with any of these 4 beads just here, so we can attach our brooch directly to the center of our work. So just weave around until you're exiting from any one of those 4 beads. It doesn't matter which one, but just any of them. So I'm going to end up in this one just here. So you can see our brooch aligns nicely to where those beads are. So I'm going to just now pass through one hole from the bead. You don't need to be too tight with it just yet. We're going to lock it in a second. And now just get that out of the way and pass through that same bead again. Pull it all the way tight. And then to make it extra secure, go back into your little brooch piece. And then once you've got it tight, we're going to go through that same little bead where we were exiting. So it's attached to it twice. Just like so, just see in there. And once you've pulled it through, we're going to now weave across to the next bead so that it can be attached again to that same top hole, but on the other side. So just pass into that second little bead just up there. And once we're here, we're going to pass through our brooch piece just there, and then loop through into the back of that same bead. And if you want to do it a second time to make it extra secure, we'll just do that now before I move on. There we go. So now I'm going to just weave along back up through the center of my work until I get to one of those other 4 beads, which aligns nicely with where the hole is at the other side of my brooch. So now I'm going to just repeat that process exactly the same to the second side of my work now by just passing through the hole and looping back around into the same bead again, do it twice, and then I'm going to move on and do it to the second side as well. There we are. And now if I just weave this thread in, again, because I've got a white thread, I'll weave to where there's a white bead, and I'll do that same process of going into the bead beside, back to the one where I started, into the one beside, and so on until it's nice and secure. Finally, bring in your scissors, cut off that last little thread, and there we go. Our brooch is all finished. There we are, all finished, looks great, ready to wear. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.